what I've seen a lot of people do is they devalue their whole product and ruin the frame and position that they've created throughout this whole sales call just by pitching the payment options, improperly. And it makes a big difference. Obviously, like presenting the payment and the price point is the most important part of the sales call, a most delicate part of the sales call, to say the least.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the High Ticket Podcast. Today we are joined by a 9-figure bum from Jersey. This is our boy Yash here, and Yash, I'll actually let you introduce yourself. Yash is a very impressive man. He has scaled an incredible SaaS company in 9 figures. It's helped a bunch of different business owners from the high ticket space to low ticket to just all over the entire industry of online business. So Yash, with that said, give a quick intro to yourself, what Fanbasis is, what you guys do, and we'll start jamming from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yash Daftary, founder and CEO of Fanbasis. Basically, we're creating the internet's one-stop shop for the hottest digital products, services, and communities.
Beautiful, very precise.
What an elevator pitch, love it.
I feel like that's been trained into you.
I've probably said it at least 1,000 times.
Yeah, okay, fair, yeah. But cool, man. Yeah, so main things I want to talk about today, especially obviously the whole topic here, what we talk about is high ticket. So what I'd like to first start by asking is just to like break down from your perspective, especially just seeing like the people, like the users on your platform. How many people do you guys have using a platform right now?
In total, we've got just over 5,000 sellers, and then we've got a couple million users now.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's great. So with all that, right, like how many of those people, like do you happen to know like the demographic breakdowns on like how many of those are in the high ticket space?
Well, I'll say, with the tool set that we've built out, we've kind of prioritized the high ticket space.
Yeah.
The way that we kind of think about info products in general, digital products, services is, everyone that has high ticket products for the most part also has some sort of low ticket component.
Yeah.
Or if we build out products for high ticket, it's most likely applicable for everything else as well. What I'll tell you though is, there is definitely a longer tail to it. I would say probably about 25% of the sellers on our platform is who I'd consider to be like a proper like high ticket, digital product or service business owner. And
what do you typically see them leveraging the platform for? And then I do want to dive over after, because you have a crazy amount of like agency experience yourself too, and the growth partner model, and like being in the high ticket industry yourself. So I think speaking to that and then talking to how your product works is actually really cool. So like with that said, what is the main utilization that you see of it? I know you mentioned like low ticket, like maybe selling like a low ticket component as attached to it, or like delivering the products as like everyone does kind of, like with school or other platforms as well too. But like, what is like the main like value utilization that you see that like the most successful people on your platform, I guess you judge that by retention, that you see those people using or how you see them using the platform?
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful if I kind of tell you the evolution of how we got to the product that we've created so far.
Please do.
So when we first started Fanbasis, we were kind of focused on building a platform that lets like celebrities, influencers, athletes connect with their fans through virtual experiences. So for example, Dennis Rodman can sell a virtual meet and greet, or you can get a reality TV star to sell a follow back on Instagram, a social media influencer to, give you a shout out on their TikTok live, or a one-on-one cooking lesson, or whatever it might be.
Wow.
So originally it was kind of, still focused on digital products, obviously, but more on like real, like skill-based or social media-based kind of monetization. The whole inspiration for it was, during COVID, I had a couple of personal friends and knew a lot of people in the space that had hundreds of thousands of followers, blew up from, either shaking their ass on a TikTok video or
That's how Bhargav got his.
Do that on the free time. What you talking about?
or whatever it might be. But I knew people that had 900,000 followers that were making less than $5,000 a month, and I was like, this is insane. If I had 1 million followers, following me, and I could post something that reaches even a fraction of them, I can guarantee you there's a 9-figure business built around that at the very least.
Yeah.
So originally started to like see if I could solve that problem, and we were able to with kind of the original version of Fanbasis. So build them, the ability to create a storefront. They can host all those experiences on Fanbasis through our app or our platform. Ended up growing that, launched the beta version in 2022, scaled it up to about 3,000 users on that side in mid 2023. Got to the point where we were doing 7 figures a month, but it was the majority of the the GMV that we were getting was being driven by our top 10% or our sellers at that time. So there was a lot of concentration. And what we kind of, understood and realized is the concentration is being formed because all those individuals aren't selling fan experiences. They're utilizing the tools that we have to sell more digital products, services, and experiences. So for example, like sports handicappers selling their picks, a e-commerce influencer selling a course, or whatever it might be. Now, with my background also being kind of in this space, I was like, honestly, there is no platform that's mainstream yet that allows you to kind of host your business in entirety. There's fragments of it, and everyone that we were working with too, or had a business like this, my whole personal network is built in this space, was using multiple different platforms. For example, using Teachable to host their course, Discord for their community, Slack for one-on-one, Stripe for payments if they're able to stay active on Stripe, and Zapier to connect 5 different things, and XYZ. So that's kind of where in Q1 of last year, we decided, hey, we're going to switch the focus of our model to focus solely on, at that time, it was really only on high ticket. Because, at the end of the day, Dennis Rodman, even though he's selling, his virtual meet and greet for $2,000, he can only do like 10 or 15 of those in a month. They were all utilizing our platform to make an extra 10, 15, 20 grand. And if someone was making 20 grand, that was like a real win for them.
Yeah.
Because it's an additional income stream. Instead, we wanted to focus on people getting all of their income from whatever they're hosting on Fanbasis. And it's a lot easier to acquire one person making 100 grand than it is to acquire 100 Dennis Rodmans that are going to make, $1,000 and $5,000 each.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we basically at first, I said, what kind of tools would I need to see here for myself and businesses that I'm affiliated with to, make this a platform that makes a lot of sense and drives enough value. And interviewed a ton of people too that I knew in my personal network that were in the info space, were using competitive platforms or didn't have a platform that they had like a central host on yet. And basically said, okay, we want to build the all-in-one tool set for all of these things. And we started with the payment processing side to answer your question.
Yeah.
Where do we see like a lot of value? Like the payment processing, buy now, pay later functionality.
Yeah.
Those are 2 easiest, lowest hanging fruits for us, because that's everyone in the space that isn't using a platform like ours is basically fucked. At a certain point, they get fucked.
Bro, literally, we had 2 clients in the past month and a half, 2 months, get taken out on Stripe. And then one had like a 20% reserve on their account. And they historically have like less than a 1% chargeback rate. And I'm like they're just like, yeah, you're considered a high risk,
Yeah, it's, you don't even need to have a single chargeback on there to get shut down. I know people like that as well. Like someone I know that did like $250K in a month, their first month operating a marketing agency, had all their payments refunded automatically by Stripe.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Automatically refunded?
Yeah. I've seen that multiple times.
That's like fucking illegal.
Yeah,
that's like, yeah.
You agree to it when you check the box.
I guess so, yeah.
I guess, yeah.
But
I never read that, man.
Yeah, they basically banned like digital product service related businesses in general.
Yeah.
So that's a lowest hanging fruit, providing someone with a place where they can actually scale their business without having to worry about the most simple thing on the planet. Is easy. And then on the back end, what we've done is we've created a lot of rails and actual infrastructure around payments to make sure that like if you technically look at Fanbasis, we are a marketplace SaaS software tool, but also a payments company. Because we built a lot of infrastructure around it.
Is the long-term vision going to be stepping more into the payment processing side, or what do the next 5-10 years look like for Fanbasis?
Yeah, the next 5 years looks like, or the next year really looks like, right now our vision is to become the Amazon for digital products, services, and communities. Right now, what we've built is kind of like the Shopify for it, where we've built the back-end tools that people are using. We have tons of people, doing tens of millions of dollars a month in volume with our business, and kind of providing that next step where right now we've solved a lot of problems for sellers, but we also want to solve those problems for buyers. There isn't a place where they can go to find, browse, and buy their digital products that they're interested in. So that's kind of the next step for us to like as a company. When it comes to payments, we are 1,000% tripling down on payments. We are building a lot of infrastructure around it.
Yeah.
I would share some updates, but
you have
keep it on the
to
down.
share. We had a brief combo.
I'll let you guys experience it firsthand, get early access to everything. But
Screw you guys for not being here.
But in short, the way we think about payments is what kind of tools can we build that will help sellers make the most money possible? Because at the end of the day, the sellers that, the way that we're going to grow our business is by helping info products make more money. Anyone selling digital products and services make more money. You can have a little bells and whistles here and there, and we want to build all of those out as well. But if someone can make an extra 5-10% a month and they have $1 million a month business, it adds up pretty quickly.
So question for you, this is like slightly off the topic of like just the product itself. For like, let's say, because a big thing that a lot of coaching companies, and we actually talked to Jeremy earlier about, scaling up a coaching company. And yeah, there are some that can get acquired at, like if you are able to surpass $1 million a month mark, you can still get that $20 million valuation if you have a consistent marketing, like the systems need to be set up very properly. You need to have a strong acquisition flow. But like what a lot of people, like they look at the coaching business, and a lot of them honestly should, based on like their goals to actually scale. They're like, yeah, I want to get to like 200K, 300K a month. Probably not going to be able to sell that. But what you now have is a lot of cash flow. And now what you can do is start building something with true enterprise value, right? Like a SaaS company. So with that said, like, how did you transition out? Because you used to run a growth partner agency, if I remember correctly. You remember? You said you used to run like a marketing agency, right?
Yeah, marketing agency in the past. It wasn't necessarily growth partner.
Okay.
There was no like growth operating, but it was there was marketing agency, influencer marketing agency. Sold info products on e-com as well.
Gotcha.
Had businesses in the e-com space too.
Okay. I know what I think it was is during our conversation, I think you were like, oh yeah, so you do growth operating. And in my head, I was like, oh, he does growth operating. So that was completely my bad on that. But even with that said too, I mean, it's like, how would you recommend if somebody's now at a point, they're like, okay, I got a lot of cash flow from coaching. I love I love the cash flow that I have. However, like I want to start reinvesting this in a meaningful way and start like, building my future, like building like that exitable or that acquirable company. Like maybe they don't want to exit their coaching business. They like the cash flow from it. What would you recommend those people do? And like, how do you break in and like validate an offer like SaaS or something?
So, this is actually something I've had pretty deep discussions with, and with a couple of my friends who, most people probably listening to this would know if I mentioned their names, but it obviously
name drop, don't be shy.
it obviously requires a lot of skill to get to a point where 200, 300 grand is great. Some people get to the point where they're making $500,000 a month or $1 or even $2 million a month, and they kind of run into that same issue too, where like the whole business is connected to a face and a personal brand.
Yeah.
So I have a handful of people too that I'm helping kind of right now with transitioning their business model to like, okay, you have a cash cow, it's generating 7 figures a month. It's actually a lot easier at that point than at like $200,000 or $300,000 a month to transition your face out of it a bit.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways to do it. You can set up like, obviously some people have their name in the brand, obviously changing the name of the brand to something that's a little bit more generic. Bringing in other influencers underneath you as well that can be like, you start adding one by one, multiple different faces of the brand. And then you can eventually get to the point where, it's not relying on you. Because at the end of the day, the risk that comes with making this a sellable asset is the fact that the leads that are being driven are coming from one source, right? One person.
It's too founder dependent.
Exactly. So if you can spread that risk out to 5 or 6 people, and have them essentially act as affiliates or employees, they're really what they really are affiliates.
Yeah.
For example, like there's a great fitness offer that, operates on our platform. They've built fitness coaching offer. So they teach you how to start your own fitness training business.
Yep.
Basically what they've done is they've created one business on the back end where there's one primary face that actually started the whole thing, and grew to the point where, they were doing multiple 6 figures a month. And then, anyone that came in that had an actual social media brand, what they did is they upsold them. Instead of charging them $6K, they'll charge them like $25K. Boom, buy now, pay later, $25K. And they make them a partner in that business,
Yeah.
And now that person, they white label the whole thing. They have their face on it. So the fulfillment engine is the same. The course is the same. The community is the same, except it's this person's face on it. And for all the clients that they bring in with their face, they, all they have to do is host like weekly group calls, once a week. And they get 50% of the revenue that they generate for basically just driving leads and then closing them.
Yeah.
So it's a very replicable model across basically every single vertical if you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of buy now, pay later, I feel like we're in a golden era of opportunity where you have that access to Affirm, Klarna, Afterpay, these buy now, pay later solutions. I know you're pretty tapped into the relationships with these buy now, pay later platforms. Do you feel like restrictions are going to keep tightening as time goes by because of muddy players in the industry, or do you feel like there's going to be more players that are going to open up access to buy now, pay later solutions?
Well, I know firsthand that there's going to be more players that open up access to them. Some of them that we're affiliated with, as well. There's players that are coming in the space that are basically building out buy now, pay laters primarily for info products, digital products, and services, because that's kind of a gap in the market. Like obviously for your own businesses, you guys are able to utilize Affirm, Klarna, Afterpay, Zip.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, like their focus as a company, like Affirm is focused on selling, allowing someone that goes to Home Depot to be able to buy like a $5,000 grill, or like, someone that's like going to Nike to be able to buy like a pair of Jordans. But they're not focused on like, this is an aspect of their business, but it's definitely not, a main driver for them. And the reason is they kind of have their whole risk assessment model built off of the physical product world. So you'll even see, their purchasing power of a customer, like if they go to like Walmart, for example, or Home Depot, and they're in person, would be a lot higher than if they're trying to buy, a digital product online, even if it's the same exact credit score, whatever it might be, because the MCC code of the business is a bit different.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there is a big gap in the market for a buy now, pay later that's focused purely on info product space, high ticket space. Exactly.
And there's a few. I mean, you have like Coach Financing and like these other ones too, but there's not one yet that like. I think what people need is they need something with instant approval.
It needs to have instant approval. If it doesn't have instant approval, it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Because then, I mean, and like, granted, like most people that I talk to have a pretty good success rate with these financing options. Like, yeah, they pay you like 14 days later, or they pay the client 14 days later, and then they are responsible now for paying you. It's just like a private loan is really all it is.
I've used it for my own stuff before too, and I've ended up getting fucked most of the time.
Yeah, I think we set up for one client, and we were just like, yeah, no, take this shit down. Like I got on a call with like a rep. I'm not coming at you, Coach Financing. It could have been you, could have been somebody else. So I don't know, could have been you. But like when I was going through the sales process, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then there was like you could pay for access to other like more premium like financing options too, or like, oh, if you pay us like $1,000 a month, I'm like, come on, like,
yeah.
And there's nothing that's like. And I think the big thing though for the processing company, it's like you almost have to be aware of the players that you're playing with, and like there needs to be strict restrictions, because there are a lot of people out there who come in, honestly, just scammers. They take people's money, take way more money these people even have, and
100%.
now they're charging back. So it's like you almost need to know the players that you're playing with and be like, like strict restrictions on like, hey, if your chargeback rate is like lower than this or higher than this percentage here, you're immediately getting kicked off the platform. Like, but as long as the right company comes in and does it, and they create restrictions that aren't too restrictive to the businesses, and like allow for like very free commerce, but are strict on like their, hey, like again, like chargeback rates, refund rates, like if they're above a certain percentage, then it's like, okay, now you're going to get kicked off. But there needs to be some like free market style financing option.
Yeah, I mean 100%. And what you're saying, like it's with the current existing solutions, like it is a very thorough like underwriting process for us too, for us to be able to even give access to it to someone. Like we don't do it unless we have like actual extended history with them. We can verify their processing statements, their bank statements, things of that nature.
I mean, we've gone through it. Like,
you guys have seen it firsthand.
Yeah, and I will say, like, everyone listening to, like, they are fucking legit. Like, and your team, by the way, I got to shout out Lyle. I got to shout out Andrew. Like, your whole team, you guys are just fucking
spot on.
It. Like, yeah,
really spot on.
I appreciate that. I'd love to hear it.
You're the only team that I know with a 9-figure founder that's still like, hey man, like, I'm like, hey, like this guy's new to the coaching space. He's looking to start something. You're like, bro, make him an intro. Like, make an intro to me. It's fine. Like, you're. Dude,
I also like love connecting with people in the space. Like if I hadn't done that, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. So, I like developing these personal relationships. Like the way that we form our product roadmap is by like working with people like yourself. Or we want to learn what people need to see with our platform to make it the best that it possibly can be.
Yeah. And I think you guys truly do it. Like in terms of platform right now, like, yeah, you guys are definitely leading it for sure. Yeah. So with that said too, what have you seen on like the payment processing side? Like, I think this would actually be super helpful, because I think a lot of people are trying to use financing and they don't really know how it works. Like, what are some of those variables that like cause people to get approved or disapproved?
When you say get approved, you mean the customer?
Yeah, the customer getting approved. Like, because I think a lot of people get on there, like, this person has a good credit score, but they didn't get approved, or like they're just, people are just generally confused. You don't have to give any like specifics or back end numbers, but like.
No, I'll give you some free sauce on this that the audience can know. But basically, the most people think credit score is like the main factor. It's not. It's debt to income ratio. That's the number one factor for someone getting approved. Like, I think I've told you guys this example. Like, if someone has a 750 credit score and makes $200,000 a year, but they've got they're living in a mansion and have 3 Lamborghinis parked in their driveway that are all financed, like, they're not going to get approved for shit on any of these platforms. So the debt to income ratio is the number one thing. The other thing is like what most people like. The most customers end up not getting approved because they just didn't take a clear enough picture of their ID.
We actually have like a couple of deals that are waiting for ID approval.
Yeah, it's crazy. So best thing to do.
We're so bought in.
I'm just like, I want to pay, but my ID firm is not approving my ID.
I'm like, bro, wipe your camera off.
Yeah, it's actually like it's way more common than you would think.
Yeah.
But it is more of a spectrum. Like, I'll tell you, if someone has less than like and it really depends on the platform, obviously, but like for the higher ticket ones, like if someone's got less than a 620 credit score, they're not going to get approved for anything higher than like 3K for the most part. Although they like some of these credit scores will go down to like 570, like there's obviously a large spectrum of where they'll get approved for that. Then you have platforms like Zip, they're like their average credit score is a 470. So obviously 50% of people are below that. They'll take no credits as well. But they have a limit, goes up to 3K for now. So, I would say like if you can get someone's debt to income ratio, or we'll actually have tools for you guys to be able to figure those kinds of things out shortly. That's how you can kind of identify really like whether someone's going to get approved or not.
That's great too, because like right now, I mean, you just have to literally go through the soft pull process on all the processors
and hope
like,
it works at the end.
You get for 3K here, 5K here, 7K here. Yeah. I mean, even we target people right now who, there's great like options like Affirm and stuff like that too. But like I know there's certain buy now pay laters that usually don't approve higher than a certain income amount. Right. But even then too, I mean, like we're having people, they come in, like you said, making 250K a year, and like they're like a 600 credit score, 650, and you're like, okay, the credit might still probably should go through, like, and then it's like no, but they have like crazy amounts of debt, and they're like living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm like, first of all, that's insane.
It's America, bro. Like. Yeah. You don't understand some of the shit I've seen bought on our platform where I'm like, wow, this is the reason like Americans are fucking poor. Like, we've seen someone use Affirm to get like a virtual virtual smoke sesh with Ric Flair before. I was like,
I mean, that's valid.
Yo, Loki, sign me up.
Yo, what's my credit score?
What's your debt to income?
Yeah. That's crazy. That is kind of cool. But wow. It's still sinking in. So when it comes to like the payments, so like and getting, make sure that you are getting payments approved and like, trying to help customers navigate that, what would you say is like the best process on like a sales call to walk somebody through? Like, let's say, like, and it's kind of hard to say without like a specific price point on an offer, but let's say for like a 10K offer, or let's say a 5K offer, because I know like there's Klarna and some other ones maybe don't approve more than like 3-4K or something like that. But what is a process you would walk somebody through? Because I feel like a lot of times people on sales calls, they lose people because they get discouraged when like one financing option doesn't work, or they're like, hey, can you pay in full? And like they didn't. Like, do you recommend going for cash up front first and then trying to do a financing option?
I always recommend that for sure. You actually 1,000% think that is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You'll see too, like closers that are like going for going for financing first. They're usually the shittiest closers. If you take the financing away from them, they're not gonna be able to close any deals.
Yeah.
Because they're not pitching it the right way. At the end of the day, you're not pitching this as something that's it's a couple $100 a month. You're supposed to be pitching it as like it devalues the product when you do it that way.
Yeah.
If you're selling something for $5,000 or $6,000, like the person needs to understand that, and at least have that thought in their head of like, shit, like let me try to get 5 or 6K together, and then you give them the relief of saying, oh wait, there is a way for me to actually be able to access this without draining my bank account, or going using a bunch of the cash that I have saved up or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So on the framing alone, it will help significantly, and it'll make it easier to collect cash. Much easier. It takes, it's obviously instant if someone wants to use a credit card to pay for something.
Yeah.
But with kind of understanding the best way to go about like that process, essentially is like you have to, like I said, you have to frame it properly. Make sure, like what I've seen a lot of people do is they devalue their whole product and ruin the frame and position that they've created throughout this whole sales call just by pitching the payment options, improperly. And it makes a big difference. Obviously, like presenting the payment and the price point is the most important part of the sales call, a most delicate part of the sales call, to say the least.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that too, because I actually have noticed that, and I think we've almost guiltily fallen in that trap a bit too, because it's so easy. It's now a $300 sale like over 3 years rather than like a $10K up front.
Yeah.
And like it's so easy to just like, and like you hear everyone's like, oh dude, like my business like quadrupled when I got financing. But I think that's a very important lesson is like sales reps should always go for the payment first. And then like when they really break it down, the person's like, I just can't do that. And the sales rep also agrees like, yeah, like this doesn't make sense. Then it's like, hey, well, we have like another option like that. Honestly, we don't always offer to everybody because there is interest. Like that's usually how we'll frame it. Even though the interest is like pretty minimal. But it's like, there is interest. That's why we don't always bring it up first. However, there is an option for you to get started for only $3. And then they're like, oh, whoa. Like, and then it's like their whole frame opens up around it.
Right.
Because they're not trying to sell this $300 a month thing. You got them to buy in on the $10K a month thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They had that thought in their head first of like, oh, let me try to get 10K together for this.
Now thinking about it too, like payment processing, not payment processing. Buy now, pay later solutions actually creates quite a crutch for a lot of coaching businesses because they position their sales process to sell a $300 a month payment. And then when they don't get approved, they just kind of lose the sale, right?
Yeah.
And that brings me to question: do you ever think there's going to be 100% approval, 100% approval like financing solution for coaches where they get the pay in full up front and it's still like if the prospect's in a tough situation that
all I'm gonna say is just give us a few weeks and I'll get
This
back to you.
podcast is probably gonna be like a month or two out.
Okay,
we have,
good.
a bunch queued right now. So
yes, it's something that we are actively working on.
Because that's not just going to revolutionize the coaching industry, but that's going to revolutionize a lot of businesses. And I think that could expand your markets outside of just the info. I know your guys' bread and butter is the internet info business, but yeah, that just opens up a whole new customer base for.
It's what I was telling you. Like I know for a fact there are companies in the works that we're affiliated with too that are focusing on building buy now pay laters for the internet economy in general. It's not just info; it's like any sort of digital product or service. Like there is a gap in the market for it right now.
What are your thoughts? And this is it's kind of a deeper discussion too, but what are your thoughts on the ethics around offering so many buy now pay later options, especially like where people have typically less money now because they've dug themselves in so much more debt, and now it's layering in more debt? Like, what are your thoughts on the ethics behind that? Like, and I guess like not like your justification for it, because I mean, it's very simply like if somebody's going to buy something anyway, they're going to buy it, or they're going to try to find a way to do it, and financing can actually make it more feasible for people to even invest in something that could actually get them ahead in life too. But what are your thoughts around that ethically?
So, this is the way I kind of think about it. If you like, for example, anyone that's doing $1 million, $2 million a month, like they probably have some sort of negative review somewhere. They probably also have 1,000+ great testimonials. Yeah. Some of our top sellers, for example, if you type their name on Reddit, you'll find like a handful of disgruntled customers. But at the end of the day, like say you're selling a e-com product, for example, e-com info product, like if you sell it to a 65-year-old truck driver that has like 3 teeth and wants to start a business, their odds of success are a lot lower than like a college student who's also in probably a lot of debt, but actually has more of the means, knowledge, savviness to be able to succeed with a product like that. So I think it's more of ethically on the sales side and the sales rep side. Like for products that I had in the past, like I would give my closers like clear like criteria of like, this is what you cannot close. Like, I don't care. At the end of the day, they want to make money, right? They're just doing their job. Yeah. If they close someone, like it makes, $200 for them or $500, $1,000 for them. Like that's, for a lot of people, like that's a big difference in how much they're making every month. But at the end of the day, like the ethical part of it comes from
the business,
itself. And I've seen the spectrum. I know like there's definitely people that I know they'll close literally anyone that has a single dollar in their bank account. Yeah. But it is the most ethical way to do it. It depends on the offer too. Like if it's a fitness program, like maybe, like maybe like turning that fat guy into someone that's fit can actually change his life for the better.
Yeah, and for our audience, I'd love for you to shed some insight if you have any on any rule like FTC regulations if they do pan out for buy now pay later solutions, like when it's applicable to use those type of solutions and when it's not. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of there's a lot of things to know on it, and we've consulted really heavily with FTC attorneys on our end just to make sure that like we as fan bases are being compliant, and also like people that are doing a lot of volume, like we typically put them, connect them with these same attorneys to like break it down for them. Basically, like if you're pitching buy now pay later as a subscription, that's like an immediate violation. That's also a violation for the buy now pay later companies in general, like Affirm, Klarna, like they absolutely like don't allow that to be a case.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
well, because I mean, it's also like if you want to cancel your subscription.
Yeah, you
you're
just
like,
charge
you're-
it.
you're
You file a
charging
dispute.
back.
Yeah, exactly. So creates a lot of risk on their front. And at the end of the day, like for them, it's more of a one reputation management thing. Two, also like their banks don't allow that to happen. Like they honestly would probably give a fuck because they're still like even if someone charges it back, they still get to keep the interest. They didn't lose money on that transaction. It's just more of it makes them as like a true merchant of record, more risky overall.
Yeah.
But if you guys need specifics on it too, happy to connect you with people. Also, like we are hosting an event at the end of February where we're actually going to have an FTC expert come in to shed light on this. So I'll make sure you guys are there.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's a
it,
huge
man.
thing because I feel like a lot of sales reps are non-compliantly pitching their buy now pay later solutions, not even knowing that it's non-compliant. So it's definitely like a lot of business owners, especially in the high ticket space, need to educate themselves on what the proper way to pitch theirs.
I would
solution would be.
highly recommend paying that 10 or 15K to get properly trained by an attorney because it's very black and white on what the rules are. There is maybe a little bit of gray area, but for the most part, like if you train your closers properly on it, it's worth having the security of like, one, it'll actually help you in the long run because you're closing better customers. You're not closing people the wrong way. You're not using any shady tactics.
Right.
But also like, having like if this is what you do for a living, like you should probably do it right.
100%. Yeah. You probably just unintentionally just pissed off a lot of unethical people with that line right there. If you're gonna do something, do it right. What the fuck do you mean by that? You took offense to that, then you should really watch more of our podcast episodes.
You can go to one of our competitors. That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's fine. Yeah, I can recommend you a few people. But awesome, man. Well, with that said, we got to go catch a dinner reservation. So well, thank you guys. I want to thank everybody for watching. Yash, thank you so much for being on here.
Appreciate you jumping on.
No, my pleasure,
real quick
guys.
too. Shout yourself out real quick.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on.
Suck 'em.
Yeah, you can go to fanbasis.com. I'd highly recommend it. You can find me on Instagram at Yash Daftary.
Or if you're also on my Instagram and you're seeing this for some reason, you can just DM me and I'll get you in contact with you too. So that'd actually be cool because I can refer a bunch of people. So.
Yeah. Get the commission for it.
Yeah, so I'll take that. Yeah. But awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on here. I hope you all learned some incredible stuff. And this is honestly one of the most valuable podcasts that I think anyone will listen to going into 2025, especially when it comes to processing and everything. So appreciate your time, man, and thanks for being here.
My pleasure,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Awesome. Thank you.